All right, so before we get into those three aspects of the rigging, has there been a change ideologically amongst the people in Wisconsin? Like, I mean, I was in Madison for the protests against Scott Walker when this was basically they started to unleash this stuff. Has there been, in that period of time or since before then, has there been an ideological change? I mean, obviously the political makeup is different of the state than it has been in the past, but if people were to poll people on issues that they have been revisited over the years in Wisconsin, has that changed?
I don't think it's changed all that much. I think the mechanisms of power have changed. I think what Republicans have done is they were able to win one election, the 2010 election, when things were very, very bad for Democrats. And then they manipulated all the rules to be able to stay in power. They gerrymandered the maps to stay in power. They passed laws to make it harder for Democrats to vote. They crushed unions, which were the number one organizing ally of the Democratic Party. They passed right-to-work laws, which depressed Democratic turnout and organizing abilities. They unleashed a flood of money that Democrats could never compete with. And so I think that is more notable than people actually changing. There certainly were some things in Wisconsin that went badly for Democrats. Clearly, Hillary Clinton was not a popular candidate there. Clearly, the Democratic Party is not as strong as it should be there because they haven't come close to defeating Walker so far. But I think the way that they have rigged the system in their benefit, I think explains more than anything else why they still remain in power, now 8 years after the 2010 election.
All right, and this is a little bit off topic, and then we're going to get to the heart of what you're arguing. But do you think Democrats are ever going to learn that lesson?
I think Democrats are learning this. I think in 2018, Democrats have learned this lesson more than in any year past, which is that the states are the laboratories of change in this country. That at a time when so many people are fixated on Donald Trump and so many people are fixated on a very, very dysfunctional Congress, the Republican agenda is moving in all of these states. And everything that Trump is doing, with exception of maybe the Muslim ban, has been tried in Republican states already. The entire agenda is coming from Wisconsin to Congress and the White House, not the other way around. And so I really think that this is the first time I've seen Democrats focus on state legislative races, for example, the first time I've seen them focus seriously on Secretary of State races, the first time that I've seen them focus on state Supreme Court races. I mean, this is critically important because Republicans realized, 30 years ago they realized this. When Democrats had a very durable majorities in Congress, they realized if we take back the states, we can implement our entire agenda. And then when Obama took the White House, they realized they could essentially nullify 8 years of the first black president if they controlled all the states instead.
Well, no, I guess I would agree with you. I think that Democrats for the first time are showing at least an awareness of the importance of these statewide races. And I don't just mean the Democratic leadership. I mean, I think there is an energy amongst just sort of typical voters and, new activists and whatnot about the importance of that. But what I'm asking specifically is, you look back to 2008, right? The Democrats come in, they have a majority in the Senate, the majority in the House. They have a veto-proof majority in the Senate for a shorter period, I think, than people remember, but it was there. They ran on EFCA, right? This is the card check. This is, to make it easier to unionize. So in other words, do you think Democrats have learned the lesson that when we get into power, our first order of business should be to make sure that we enhance our ability to stay in power? Right? Honestly, that is the understanding that Republicans have. Their first order of business.
Yeah, that's the first priority. The first priority of Republicans is always give as many tax breaks as possible to our donors. Make it as difficult as possible for our opponents to organize. Make it so that we can't be voted out of office no matter what happens because we've gerrymandered the district so badly. Have Democrats done the alternative thing? No, not at all. I think in some cases, Democrats are starting to think about this, thinking about ways, for example, to expand the electorate so that there's a larger pool of voters that would potentially vote Democratic. Now, I think you should just do that for democracy's sake.
Right.
I think you should just make it easy to vote, and whoever wins.
Well, that's the thing.
When Tim Pawlenty won in Minnesota with Election Day registration, I didn't criticize Minnesota's election for letting Pawlenty win. I thought it was a good thing that Minnesota had these laws. So, but I do think that this is still asymmetric warfare in terms of how the parties think about the legislative process and their base. I think you're absolutely right about that.
I mean, and the advantage theoretically the Democrats have is that they can just simply be pro-democracy, a big D democracy or small d democracy, I should say, and achieve, benefits to them as a party.